Okay. Okay. Uh, well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for Zooming in this morning. I'm Wendy Pierce from the Democracy Team. And along with Cindy Madigan, Carol Sullivan, and Marilyn Byfield, I'm very excited to host today's presentation about zero waste legislation. Our speakers for this hour will be Heather Trim and Ann Murphy. Heather is the Executive Director for Zero Waste Washington, and Ann is the issue chair for solid waste management. Ann and Heather, thanks so much for being here today. I hope you'll each share a little bit more about your amazing backgrounds and experience when we get started. I'm sure we'll get some questions, so my team and I will try to help spot those as we go along. We'll probably see some of them with the hand raised and some of them in the chat. So we'll try to get to those in the time we have. So with that, the next hour is yours, and thank you again.
Okay, well, thank you. As Wendy said, I'm Ann Murphy, and I switched up the title of this category a little bit to call it waste diversion, so we could be more actively thinking about what we're doing with our waste, and that we want it to not be in a waste stream. And so I wanted to just alert you to the fact that the League of Women Voters has positions that support the activity that we're doing here. And these issues were actually studied a number of years ago, and we have positions both in a state level and national level that support the diversion of waste. And actually in our state positions, we have positions related specifically to hazardous waste, as well as what we think of as solid waste. And we also actually have a specific position that supports the bottle bill. So that was very interesting to me. And then we also have a position that relates to not having toxics in the home. So that's given us a breadth of positions to support bills over the last several years in the area of solid waste. We do know that how we manage and deal with this waste and turn it, if we keep it in that whole circular thing, then we lessen the climate impacts. At the national level, there are positions that support not only, I always, when talking to classes, would say, no, recycling is not the most important thing. There are waste reduction, there is reuse, and all of those things. And so this year, we seem to have a plethora of bills that this morning are still alive. And Heather is the one that's always on top of those bills. And so she's going to give us the update. And I've also asked her if she would talk about how some of those bills changed over the session, because as many of you are aware, getting through the legislature can be a huge negotiating job. And so we did have a couple of bills move out of the House just recently that will be going forward, and we'll keep that alive. And so we've got a lot of activity needing to happen on bills here the next couple of days, because cutoff for these bills is Tuesday night. So Heather, why don't you take it away and give us the rundown on these various bills?
Right, and thank you so much, Carol, and thank you, Ann, and let me know when you can see the screen.
It's there.
Okay, let me get started with the first slide. Okay, so hello, everyone. I'm Heather Trim with Zero Waste Washington, and I do want to say a few things up front. One, I apologize about the lighting. I'm borrowing Representative Liz Berry's office to give this talk because she's over on the floor and the lighting is just not the greatest. So sorry about that. I probably look like I'm on haze. Secondly, I am going to potentially have to drop off and leave on moment's notice because we're at the floor and things are hot and heavy over there. So I apologize in advance if I have to say, oops, got to go and just leave, which is the way it is when you're in the middle of legislative session. Hopefully not. I don't think so, but just I wanted to say that in case. Okay, so we are, if you aren't familiar with us, a statewide nonprofit. We work to make trash obsolete, and we do that by three main things: helping get laws passed at the city, the county, and the state level, mainly the state level right now, but we certainly do a lot of work at city level as well, if you're interested. We do research projects and we do pilot projects. And these are currently our 7 focus areas. We're actually about to do a retreat to maybe reassess some of these, but this is our current suite. Most of the bills that I'm going to talk about actually impact many of these topics, maybe all. Okay, so this is a photo I took in January. I thought it was so beautiful. The fountain outside the Capitol, I just thought it was incredibly beautiful that it came out that it looked like this. They turned the fountain eventually off, as you can imagine. So I'm going to talk today, don't worry about this list right now, I'll come back to it, but I'm going to talk about these bills, which are the zero waste related bills. And actually there are a few more, but these are the bigger bills that are in play that we're working on. And then, as you know, this is the legislative calendar. We are, oops, I should have moved the arrow down a little bit, where we're still we're not yet at February 13th. So February 13th, 5 p.m. is the big cutoff that we're looking at right now to get out of the House of Origin, as you all are very aware. So I've divided the bills into topic areas today. And so I'm going to start with the bills that have to do with toxic chemicals. And we'll start with this bill, which is the refrigerant bill. So this bill did just get voted off the House floor on Saturday. So it is now headed over to the Senate. And this is a first in the country big deal bill, big deal. And other states are looking at Washington to see if this is a bill that they might want to do in their states. We are partnering with NRDC on this bill. And what it is that we have refrigerants in the HVAC systems, as you can see on the left, or in appliances, including refrigerators, air conditioners. Heat pumps use refrigerant gases. And the problem is that refrigerant gases are very, very, very much more potent than CO2 as a greenhouse gas. And we have international and federal laws and treaties that have gone into effect that are actually phasing these out. But all of the existing equipment, especially those big HVAC systems, especially, for example, the ones that are used for our Apple industry, they have these big warehouses where they're cooling the produce. They use the existing equipment uses the old gases. And they're going to run out of gases because they're not going to be allowed to manufacture more of them. There was a cutoff in 2024 and there's another one in 2028. So each 4 years, we're going down to less gases, brand new gases that are allowed to be produced in the world. And so the issue is we need to preserve the gases that are in the systems already, clean them and reuse them to keep that equipment in operation until they redo their HVAC system and it can use the new gases. And the big problem is that when service technicians go in to repair or replace these systems, they cut the line sometimes and let these extremely potent gases out into the atmosphere instead of capturing them. So what this bill does is it creates a product stewardship program where the manufacturers of the gases pay into a system, and then the service technicians would be provided with essentially a bounty. We're not using the word bounty, but a financial incentive to bring the gases in instead of venting them. So right now it doesn't cost them anything if they vent it, and they're in a rush because they have to get the job done. And now if they take a few more minutes and capture them with this bill, they would get a bounty and make it worth their while. So that's the whole point of this bill. It does have quite a bit of opposition from some of the business interests. But the other issue is that some of the businesses are very much in favor of this because they are running out of gas and they need the gas. So it's an interesting thing. We want these gases to be gone altogether, but in the meantime, we don't want them vented. We want them recirculated and cleaned and reused carefully, because if the system's operating well, then there's no gas going out, because the system would actually not operate if the gas was going out. Okay, the next bill is lead in cookware, which is pulled from rules and is eligible for a House vote right now, but has not been pulled up to be voted on. So this is about lead in cookware, and UW has done quite a bit of, and this is being led by Jerry Paulette and King County Hazardous Waste is the main that we're partnering on this bill. So UW has done quite a bit of research on these pots and pans. They are mostly imported, and the bill would set a standard of 5 parts per million for these materials, because as you know, lead is a very toxic chemical. It goes into your blood, and it impacts things like IQ and your it's a neurotoxin. And so this would say you can't sell these products in Washington. And we, of course, don't want them to go to Goodwill and be circulated in that regard as well. So this bill came to this was started in 23, and it came to the out of the Appropriations Committee unanimously. So it's a bit of a bipartisan bill, but I think at this point the clock is ticking, and the question is, can they get it voted out? I just saw Rep. Paulette a few minutes ago, and I said, I hope you can get your lead bill out, but of course it's not up to him, it's up to leadership. Okay, this bill, the mercury light bulb bill, got voted out of the House floor on Saturday. And unfortunately, it took forever. There were a lot of speeches because it didn't have that many amendments. And this is being led by Rick Hackney. And the issue is, I'm going to start with a little question. We'll make it a little interactive here. So raise your hand if you know the exact store or location where you can take your fluorescent bulb, and you can see photos of what your fluorescent bulbs are. Raise your hand so we can see who all has the ability, who knows where it can go. And I can't see everybody, but I'm going to hope that everybody is, yeah, now I can click through. Okay, so this is the point. Not everybody knows, and that is a problem. We want people to know that there's a program that we already have in place to recycle these bulbs. And unfortunately, the program is not doing that great of an effort to let people know about this. These bulbs have mercury in them. And these are the types of bulbs that these bulbs are. What fluorescent bulbs include. And you can see it includes things like your linear tube ones and the screw into your lamp ones, but it also includes bug zappers and tanning bulbs and black lights and etc. So it's really kind of amazing how many bulbs in our world have these chemicals in them. It's mercury vapor that's in the light bulb, and it has a whole heck of a lot of human health impacts. And it's really the workers who are most impacted if people put them into the recycle bin and they get broken, or they put them in their garbage bin and they get broken. And of course, we don't want mercury vapor out in the atmosphere and hurting the environment. So this is just a fun little image I found online to sort of show the trajectory of where we've been with illumination. So first we had the candle, which was a big innovation at the time, right? I guess first we had fire, then we had candles, then we had incandescent bulbs for a long time, and they work really, really well, but they use up a lot of energy. Then we had the fluorescent bulbs, which was a big step forward in terms of energy saving, but unfortunately had mercury in them, mercury vapor. And now we have LEDs, and the LEDs have become much more cost effective. They last longer than the mercury ones. And they are all different colors and shades now, instead of that kind of glary color that they initially had. So this is where we want to be, the far right. And the US government is basically pushing people away from incandescent. Starting August 1 of 2023, there is no sales of the common incandescents. There are a few specialty ones, but they were actually phased out August 1. You should not be able to go to the hardware store and buy these bulbs at this point. But you can still buy the CFLs, and you can still buy, and of course, we want you to buy the LEDs. So there's 7 states. So what this bill does is it bans the sale of the general use mercury bulbs. And there's 7 states that have done this. And you can see those here. But we're the only state that had a recycling program already in place. And that is called Light Recycle. This went into effect in 2015. But unfortunately, this bill sunsets in 2025. It was set in statute that it would sunset in 25. And so this is where the mercury light bulbs can be recycled through a program where you can drop them off at hardware stores. So if you go online and look for Light Recycle, you'll be able to find where near you can take your light bulbs back. So we're having quite a bit of a fight with the industry over this bill, because we're saying in 29 the bulbs would be banned, 2029. And then we want the industry to take over the program and pay for it until 2030, 2040, 2037, something out in that time frame, because these bulbs last about 10 years and they are fighting hard back. We weren't even sure we'd be able to get this voted out of the House. So we did, but it wasn't, it was not party line. The Ds did not all vote yes. So that's where that bill is, but it did at least get out of the House. So we got a big fight in the Senate ahead of us. Okay, another bill, which I just, as I was clicking into do this Zoom, I saw the Senate order of consideration, and this bill is going to be heard in the Senate any minute now. So this is very exciting because this is a bill that's a bipartisan bill. It's being led by Republican Senator Jeff Wilson. And what it does is it addresses perfluorinated chemicals that are in biosolids. What you're seeing in this photo is a farm with a tanker type truck that is spraying biosolids across the farm, as you can see. It's different than the way they spread, say, compost or spread other things. And it's liquid, it's a slurry. Right now, biosolids are being spread on our farms and our forests in Washington. And the issue is this: we have perfluorinated chemicals in our products in our homes, in a lot of things, not just clothing and household products, but a whole ton of industrial processes and other things. Perfluorinated chemicals are the Teflon chemical. They're the forever chemical. They provide a moisture barrier, for example, like on a Gore-Tex type coat, which we all had at one point, or the nonstick pans, or even some foodware, and then a whole heck of a lot of things, including soft, those 24-hour contact lenses are made up of a portion of that. Hang on one second, I just got to respond. What happens is when you wash your, Carol, let me answer your question in a sec. When you wash your clothes or things go down the drain or industrial processes go into our sewage treatment plant, that material, all that effluent goes into the sewage treatment plant, and the solids, which is the fecal matter, settle to the bottom. That's basically what you see in tank number 3 on this diagram. The solid matter, which is your fecal matter and sediment, tends to adsorb toxic chemicals. The toxic chemicals stick onto the solids, preferential to the liquid. So and then what happens is all that solid material gets somewhat digested, meaning microbes work on a little bit, and then it goes and is getting spread on our farms and forests in Washington. So the issue that what this bill would do is it wouldn't ban them right now. What it would do is say that ecology has the authority to figure out what method they want to require, and then have testing be done everywhere by all the wastewater treatment plants that are spreading the biosolids. So we can see how big a problem we have in Washington state. There have been major lawsuits in other states over this issue because there are farms where all the cows died. The challenge with these type of chemicals is they bioaccumulate. So you spread it, but then next time you spread it, you're just spreading more. You're not, like, the stuff that was there didn't degrade, so you're just adding to it. Carol, did you have a question? Carol M? Hand raised.
Yes,
Yeah.
and no, but I have one that, is there a limit acknowledged as being safe to accumulate, just like lead? I'm
Yeah.
wondering, the
Great
thing
question.
about contact lenses really shocked me.
I know, right? I mean, honestly, I wouldn't wear them if you had them. I used to wear contact lenses, but glasses now. So that's a big debate across the country, what limit it should be. When we first started working on this work about 10 years ago, the limit was very, very high. In other words, not very stringent. And different states are making lower and lower limits, and some for groundwater, some for drinking water, some for solids, etc. So, you have to make standards for each different type of material, media. But there isn't, like right now, one number that I can point to. It depends across the state. This is such a intense topic. There's a lot of work going on it, and EPA is actually operating much faster on this issue than they normally do on toxic chemicals, which is good. So that was a great question. Okay, talking about another toxic chemical that is hot and heavy, and that is 6-PPD, which is the chemical that is created by quinone, which is put into tires as an antioxidant so that the tires will not degrade as fast. But as you all may know, 6-PPD is getting into our stormwater and is killing coho salmon, when they come back up their creeks from the ocean before they can lay eggs. That's called pre-spawn mortality. And so this is a major problem, and it's not just impacting coho salmon. They've now tested and found that it's impacting a bunch of different wildlife species. But of course, for us, the coho salmon and the fact that they can't lay their eggs and die and can't make more, coho salmon is a major, major problem. So this bill, which is being sponsored by Senator Jesse Solomon in the Senate, would give ecology the authority to, under the Safer Products Law, we have an existing Safer Products Law, look at that chemical in replacement tires as well as original tires. So it's expanding the authority that ecology has for this effort. It doesn't necessarily, I don't think it speeds up their work on this, but they are already working on this. So this is a very hot topic because it's such a bad problem. And, the auto industry is under major pressure to come up with a different chemical and not use 6-PPD as a chemical in their tires. Now, related to this is another bill that is now, I'm focusing on the Senator Marco Lias version, which is SB 6304. This bill is not just about tires, so I'm not giving you the bill title here. This bill is about EV vehicles and idling and tires. So it's a big bill, and it actually is eligible now. It got pulled, so it's now eligible for a vote in the Senate floor. But the part about tires is the part I'm focusing on as a zero waste organization. Hang on one second. Because the issue about tires is that it would require that replacement tires have low rolling resistance, meaning low friction. In terms, it's not exactly friction, but it's like friction, so that there's less energy used as your tires go around when you're driving your car. And the way you make a tire have lower rolling resistance, but still be safe, so it's not like you aren't going to be able to drive it safely, is the design of the actual construction design of the tire, the pattern of the tire tread, the inflation amount, the width, and some other things like that, but also the chemistry that they're making the tire of. And so when I testified on this bill, there was a House version and now a Senate version, and the House version died, so this is the Senate version. I testified that we want to make sure we don't have another 6-PPD situation. We want to have chemical analysis, green screening basically, of the chemicals that are being used for making the tires have lower rolling resistance. And it only costs about $7,000 per test, per chemical. So it's not that big of a budget request. So that is tires. Okay, so those were the toxics bills. Now let's get into our number one priority bill, which is the REWRAP Act. And I'm going to give you a little background on plastics and recycling, which I said last year, but now it's a little bit updated. And so I'll just go quickly through these. So in Washington, we at one point had one of the best recycling rates in the country. We peaked in 2011, and we have been on a downward trend since then. And what this means is, and this is brand new report that came out of ecology, that an awful lot of our products are going to the landfill. So the light green on here is what's being recycled. The dark green is what is going to the landfill. And you can see that it's a large amount of paper, which is the one to the left, is still going to the landfill. The next one is total rigid plastics, which is like your yogurt tub or a plastic water bottle. A lot of those are still going to the landfill. Flexible packaging, which is the next one, is things like plastic bags, but also like your chip bag and like flexible film, that kind of thing. Then you have glass, and then you have metal. So what's happening is that the costs have been going up, but what's happening is the service has been going down or stagnating, but the cost has been going up for all of our residents. There's been a 36% increase in the costs for the homes per home in the UTC area, the Utilities and Transportation Commission, which is mainly our unincorporated areas of the state. But the same trend is happening in our cities as well. So the cost going up, recycling flat to going down. And the cities and counties have reacted. So King County has reduced the number of materials that they will take, types of materials that they'll take curbside for recycling. Tacoma and other cities implemented surcharges. Spokane reduced their collection frequency of recyclables. And in some places like Franklin County, they've discontinued curbside recycling altogether. So we have only 58% of our municipalities have residential curbside service available to them. In the Puget Sound region, we have 100% of the residents have access to it. They may choose or not choose to subscribe, but other parts of the state don't have that. With the WRAP Act, recycling would become free for everyone who has garbage pickup at the curb. So this map would all be basically 100%. And it would also be free. And so people they could opt out, but I don't know why you'd opt out of a free service. But anyway, and then cities and counties actually can opt out. So a county can say, we want to opt out. That was negotiated with the counties. They wanted the ability to opt out. So the upshot of all of this is that we are sending $104 million worth of material to the landfill or the incinerator that could be recycled every year. And we have this brand new study that shows how popular recycling is and waste reduction. So these are off the chart numbers. When you get numbers in a poll of 60% or greater, that is good. And you can see here that it's 70 and 80%, high 80s, that people want, that recycling is important to them. They want access. Reducing waste is important, 86%. That everyone in the state should have recycling and that it should be free. So what the WRAP Act does is it institutes an extended producer responsibility where the manufacturers, the brands and the manufacturers pay for the end of life. They pay for recycling in Washington if it passes. And all these different colors of all these other countries show where they have had programs in place. In Germany since 1991, Europe, since the 1990s, Canada in the last more than a decade. So in the US, 4 states, the ones that are yellow and green, have passed this policy. And we are the only one on the West Coast. So California and Oregon have already passed this policy. Here are some of the brands that would be paying for the full life cycle. So just give you an example of what it is. So we're talking about paying for the full life cycle of their packaging. And it's an outcomes-based bill. Hang on a sec. I still have a residual cough since Christmas. Driving me crazy. So it's outcomes-based, which is the bill is designed, it's over 100 pages long, which is long. And it would have increased reuse and recycling, universal and convenient recycling for all, and responsible recycling, meaning you know where your products are going and you know they're actually being recycled. It also has a post-consumer recycled content portion to the bill. This means that the products that you're making, the packaging you're making, has to have recycled material in it. We already got this passed with Senator Doss's bill 1522 for the things that are above the line here. So that's beverage containers, household personal care and cleaners, and trash bags. But below the line are the things that this bill would add to that. And the idea behind this is to help drive the system so that people would, there's more value in the recycling in the system. So this is an economics perspective. So here it is. It's the WRAP Act. Senator Liz Lovick offered a companion in the House, SB 6005. But the vehicle that is at this point up for a floor vote is Liz Berry's 2049. And we have 2 more days left, so we'll see. And then again, here are some of the brands that we've been negotiating with on this bill, and it's been hot and heavy. I cannot tell you how many lobbyists have been outside the doors last week, starting Tuesday, Wednesday, and like over the weekend, Saturday, basically we're up against about, I'm going to guess 50 lobbyists. And then here are some of those. Here's some of the ones that we are up against. Now, there's another bill, which Ann mentioned at the top here, which is the DRS, that's the bottle bill. This was part of the WRAP Act last year, but it was taken out and made into a separate bill by the legislators because they felt that the WRAP Act was too heavy, too much stuff, and it needed to be a separate thing. And it was a little bit of a separate conversation. So this bill has been heavily lobbied. I swear, every day I bump into lobbyists, people who've been brought in by them, by the lobbyist team to lobby their legislators. You know, people from the glass industry, people from the metal industry, people from the plastic bottle water issue. I mean, I kept meeting more and more. And this is a photo from British Columbia. So the way this bottle bill would work, if it was passed, would be a 10-cent charge when you buy a beverage container, and then you would get your money back by putting it in these blue bags, and then dropping it off in like a shipping container type of kiosk. Let me see a photo of that. Yeah, here we go. A shipping container type of kiosk. And then you would get, and you put a sticker on it, and you would get your credit back of having your 10 cents, and that would go into an online account that you could use for getting cash back, or you could use it for college funds, like starting a college fund, or for your grandkid, or for yourself, your kid. And then also nonprofits you could donate to nonprofits. So it's a pretty flexible online system of where your deposit money could go. And it would be a very large range of beverage containers, more than is in Oregon right now. I'm happy to answer a lot more questions on all of these as we get to Q&A. Okay, so now let's move in. Oh, and where that bill is, it's eligible for a floor vote. Okay, let's talk about organics, which is yard waste and food waste. And isn't that great? Look how yummy that compost looks. Doesn't that look like yummy? Okay, so this bill is being offered by Rep. Delio in the House 2301, which is the vehicle that is now moving forward, and Senator John Lovick, who's from Snohomish County, 6081. And he is a big zero waste advocate, by the way. He is really into zero waste, which is great. Beth is the chair of the Environment Committee. She is amazingly great and a big climate change person, but really great, really into food waste, because this bill is really about food waste, this version. So this bill, just to say, this bill builds off of HB 1799, which passed 2 years ago, that was led by Rep. Fitzgibbon, which started the ball rolling in terms of composting and food donations. So we're trying to get that material out of the landfill because it creates methane gas when it rots in the landfill because there's no oxygen. If you compost it, you don't get that level of methane. You get a little bit, but not much. And you can have the beneficial, aspects of turning that compost into a soil amendment. And it's great for our ag, farms and for landscaping. Or we really want the edible food to go to food banks. And there's a large part of that in this bill. Here is just from last fall, a new report that came out from ReFed. ReFed is a national think tank that works on food. And it's sort of shocking if you look at this. Of the wasted food that we have in our system, only a teeny amount right now is going to food donation. A lot is, a little bit more is going to animal feed and industrial uses. A fair amount's being going to compost, or it's not harvested, it's just left in the fields. And then an unbelievable amount is going to landfills. So, and other things. So we really, really, really need to flip this pyramid on its upside down. And EPA just came out in October with a brand new way that they look at food waste. And this is a shift from their previous approach. And their number one thing that they're saying, which this is all, by the way, pretty common sense, prevent the food waste in the first place. Because when you have wasted food, you have embodied in there all of the greenhouse gases that it took to make it, the fertilizer, the water, huge amount of water, all the transportation, everything involved with that. So if you don't have the food waste in the first place, you can really make a big climate change difference. But then to donate the food that's edible, feed animals, then compost, then anaerobic digestion, and then only at the very last would you incinerate or landfill, if you must. Okay, so this is the components of this bill, 2301. There's a lot of pieces in the bill to support food donation. Some new grants that would help do pilot projects to make the food donation go better in the grocery stores, and then also some technical assistance and a piece that actually is about farms and helping the farmers get some money if they donate the food rather than not harvesting it, leaving it in the fields. This is a photo of a woman at Safeway. I grabbed this from a TV thing, so it's a little bit blurry. But Safeway in Seattle has been doing a pilot where they're using yellow bins to designate that this is food to be donated, and they're like trying to really systemize it and make sure that the food to be donated is not accidentally being composted instead. Now, another piece of the bill is that it would require residents to compost in our urbanized areas by January 1, 2030. There are a lot of places in the west side of the state where composting is offered at your curb, but people have not necessarily signed up for it. This would mandate it in urbanized areas. Seattle right now does mandate it. This is my house. That's my bin, by the way. Going into the thing. So the Seattle mandates that you must compost, or you can compost in your backyard, but if you can't put it in your landfill bin. Another big part of it is that people are confused because different parts of the state have different colors for different things. So this bill would mandate that for landfill, it has to be black or gray or galvanized steel, blue for recycling, and green or brown for composting, which, shocking to me, is not the case across the state. And in other countries, this is very important to Rep. Delio because she said, I've been to other countries where everything is really, really clear. All the colors are things are really well color coded, and it's super clear. Here, I'm renting a place in Olympia right now with some roommates. And look at these. I mean, this is so confusing. That middle bin there is actually recycled, but see how it's green? It's almost the same color as the other bin, which is, I think, compost or garbage. Anyway, it's super confusing. They're almost all the same. And here is at my own rental. I took this photo. This is a recycling bin, and see how it's green for starters, and see that big gash that's down the left-hand side. It has a huge hole in it. And so we need the city of Olympia to trade this out for a blue bin and just do it, over time, because how confusing is it to have a bin that's green for composting when in most places it's blue. So that's what that issue is. Then we also have some improvements to the reimbursement program for farmers to use compost. That's in the bill. And the big thing, and this is what the cities and counties have been clamoring for, is we're standing up if the bill passes, it would stand up a new grant program to provide money to cities and counties staff to be able to do enforcement and education and outreach and buy new bins if they need the bins to be the right color and do all that kind of thing. So it takes the Department of Ecology 8 months minimum to stand up a new grant program. So if we can get the bill passed now, then we can try to put some money into it next year. We're not going to try to get a lot of money into it this year because it's going to take them so long to stand up the program. In fact, they're going to do rulemaking, which is actually 2 years for this one. So that if the bill passes. So just to give you an idea, when you try doing a grant program, how hard that is, it takes time. And then one of my favorite bills is this one being offered by Senator Derek Stanford about cannabis waste. This bill started in 23 and it stalled out. It had no opposition. It was 100% bipartisan. And the reason is because cannabis waste, surprisingly, is a big deal in our state. We have 400 cannabis growers in our state now. That's what these red dots are, which is sort of amazing because we only legalized cannabis not that long ago. But isn't this amazing how many grow locations there are in Washington? And right now they are required if they take it to the landfill, the green waste, not the stuff they sell, but the green waste, the leaves, the stems. If they take it to the landfill, they have to dilute it 50%, 50-50 with something like kitty litter. So you're sending something that's going to create methane gas and you're putting organic material, which is going to create, it's like crazy. And they're not allowed to sell it as compost. So this bill would basically say you can make compost and sell it. That's basically what it says. Or you can make some extracts. But it doesn't have that, whatever it is, the potency, whatever it is, in it, it's like tiny, like trivial amount in the greens. Anyway, we want to make compost. And that's what this bill will do. And this bill is the furthest along. It's actually, well, no, I guess it's not the furthest along, but it's already passed out of the Senate and it is already scheduled for hearing this week. Okay, so to give you in sum, a little, we do a legislative tea every year in once a year, and it was a couple of weeks ago, and that's what some of these slides are from. And if you want to be on we do a newsletter every quarter, so 4 times a year. So we don't send a lot of emails out, but we do have a legislative tea where I gave a lot of detail about bills, a little more detail than I did given today because I have less time today. So this is my showing of how it's a sprint when you go. This is a racetrack. How when you go through the short session, it's a sprint. So this is just showing where the different bills are. So I didn't mention the right to repair bill, which is my favorite bill. It died. So there it is back in the policy committee. It did not make it out of its policy committee. On the floor, eligible for floor vote are these bills, including PFAS and biosolids, which is at this very moment, possibly literally at this very moment, being voted on in the Senate. And it's a bipartisan bill, so I don't expect too much trouble. Then we have the bills that have made it out of the House of Origin and are ready for their committee hearings in the next phase. So those 4 bills have made it that far. Oh, I didn't mention the regenerative organic bill. That bill is about organic, as in organic food, but it has a big piece in there about compost. So I'm counting that as a bill that we are very much supporting, but I didn't have time to go into every bill. All right, so here is what the legislature looked like last April. Look how pretty it is. When you come down here, it's like not so pretty until April, and no one sees it because our session is so early, but isn't that pretty? And so here again are the bills that I went over, and I think I'm saying thank you here. And I will put in the chat, I have this here, but I'll put in the chat our legislative page so you can track bills. But I wanted to just have this one here in case you didn't catch some of the bill numbers for just a second. And I think we have a little time for questions. Yes?
Yes.
Well, Heather, I would like, this is Anne, point out some of the bill numbers are last year's bill numbers and they changed this year, right?
A few bills, yes.
Yes, the REWRAP Act.
Oh my God, I forgot to change the number on the REWRAP. Oh my gosh, you're right. Good catch. I thought I'd changed all the bill numbers.
And there was another one down there. The PFAS bill has a different number this
year. Oh my gosh, you're right. I am bad, Heather. I think I had the right name. I had the right numbers when I was doing the slides on them. And here is our website, and those have the right numbers. Thank you, Ann. I'll fix those.
There's too many
it's
things.
Been crazy.
It's crazy.
You don't breathe pretty much during session, as you all know. Okay, any questions?
So it looks like if we scroll up far enough to catch Carol McMahon's question, I think she's kind of the first in a line of questions that are starting to accumulate. I couldn't
really see them. Do you mind reading me the questions?
Oh, not at all. Okay, not at all. So from Carol, is there a water test that can be performed to measure pollutants and chemicals in streams, creeks, and lakes?
Great question. Yes, every chemical practically can be tested, but it costs a lot of money, and you have to basically use a special sampling jar and take it to the lab. There are instantaneous tests now available for quite a few chemicals, less on the toxic chemicals, more on things like oxygen and nutrients, but there are some now on toxic chemicals. And there are in our state, people who go around and do water quality sampling, they do some that are right in the field and they can do them immediately, and then others they send to the lab.
Okay. Philip Palios has the question, what is the cost to expand recycling services statewide?
Oh, great question. Okay, so what is the cost of the REWRAP Act for the manufacturers? It is around, I would say, between $300 and $400 million a year, which is, you think, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. And we know that because we see what's going on in California, Oregon, Maine, and Colorado. And we can also calculate it. We don't know exactly how much it's going to cost, but I can tell you this, it is a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of a penny for the cost of the products, of the packaging themselves. And we have a number of, one question the Republicans ask is, well, aren't they just going to pass this cost on to the consumers? And the reality is that we have a bunch of studies that have shown that there's negligible to no impact when you have one of these programs come in. And in fact, right now, we are paying for these programs in Europe and in Canada because these are international corporations like Coca-Cola and Procter & Gamble who sell internationally. But and I can see that something popped up about expanding the system. I don't recall the number about how much the dollar amount is to expand the system, but it would be an overhaul of our entire recycling system, because in cities, even like Seattle, there are quite a few multi-family buildings that don't have very good recycling right now. So they would get way better recycling. And you would have one list for the entire state. We'd only recycle the same thing in Seattle and in Walla Walla, which is opposite of what's happening right now.
And Philip had a follow-on to what is the real world evidence that demonstrates a positive environmental impact of bottle deposits?
Okay. There are quite a few studies that have been done by the industry, I guess actually, and some not by, that show a dramatic decrease in litter in the states that have bottle bills in place and those that don't. There are 10 states that have bottle bills in place. The other thing, and the bigger thing, I mean, we work a lot on litter, so litter is super important. But the problem we have right now is that when the beverage containers are going into our recycle bin, they are getting crushed. The liquid that's in them gets on our paper, which makes the paper not recyclable. And the glass turns into little shards, which gets into the paper, which makes it like when they're trying to process the paper in these big steel drums at the pulp mill, it's like sandpaper damaging the steel. And so we're talking about contamination coming from these beverage containers. If we pull them out separate through something like a bottle deposit, you have very clean streams of those bottles and those the metal cans, and they are really, really clean and can really easily be made into new bottles and cans with a very clean stream. And that's what's going on in Oregon and in the other bottle states right now, bottle bill states right now. Major, major improvement for recycling if you pull them out.
And from Jane Vilders, please address the comment that some recycling businesses make the most money on aluminum recycling, which pays for other recycling they do. The bottle bill takes this money away from them.
Yes.
What will prevent companies from passing on the cost of their recycling of their products to the consumer?
Okay, great. Okay, well, I think I've already answered the second part, which is the studies have shown they don't. And it's a tiny, 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 tiny amount of money. Plus, they have benefits of cleaner streams. So they actually have an offset there in terms of costs. Wait, what was the first part of the question?
Address the comment that some recycling businesses make the most money on aluminum recycling.
Yes. Okay, so here's the deal. I heard Waste Management say last January, so January 23, in a webinar, that 25% of their recycling profit is from beverage containers. But here's the deal. The major companies like Waste Management and Republic and Waste Connections, only 2 to 7% of their revenue is from recycling. They make a lot of money from their landfills and from other things, from the hauling and things like that. So it actually, even though it's a financial hit to them, it is not in the scheme of things that much, but it's a hit. But the bigger thing is, will they pass that on to the consumers? We do not want them to pass on the consumers, which is why we needed to have the WRAP Act go at the same time or prior to the bottle deposit, because then the brands are paying that differential instead of us. So we don't want the consumers, us, the residents, to pay for that loss of revenue. We want that to be paid for by the producers and brands themselves. So, because our recycling would be free and they'd be paying for everything, including that cost differential.
Wendy,
That's been a big fight. That's been a big, big fight.
Wendy, I'd like to follow on with something for Heather there. Heather, in the testimony that was offered by opposition, there was so much talked about on a needs assessment. And what was that study all about that they got at the end of last year? I mean, how are those two things different?
Great question. Okay, so the WRAP Act, as I mentioned, is 104 pages long at the moment. And it was 130 last year with the bottle bill in it. In the WRAP Act, there is a very, very detailed needs assessment as the very, very first thing that is done. And it's a couple-year process, and it looks county by county, and it looks at how many, if we are going to do this, how many trucks do we need? How many new recycling facilities do we need? What kind of education do we need? And it also looks at social justice issues, and it looks at toxics issues. That needs assessment has been offered as an amendment. There are, by the way, 24 amendments on the bar right now, which is a lot. It's a lot of floor time, which is why we're worried about this bill getting pulled to the floor. Rep Fi and also Rep Di have offered the exact same amendment, one word different, the word state, which would require a separate needs assessment using the same words as in the RAP Act, but having it be done first, and then we'd have to do another one if the RAP Act passed later. Because the problem is the needs assessment that they're talking about would be sort of doing the same things, but until there's actually a regulatory endpoint that people have to do, it will be more like a study. And we have 10 studies that have been done so far, 10, on this overall policy over the past 6 years. And they've all pointed to the fact that we need, in order to really fix our recycling system in Washington State, we need something like the RAP Act. So we don't need another study, and this duplicative needs assessment that's being pushed by the opposition is, in our view, a delaying tactic. Because we'd have to do another one once the bill passes. And it's almost the same, but it wouldn't be but it'd be more meaty when it's actually in the bill.
And we had another question. If we give grants for food waste / rescue, how do we avoid that incentivizing increased food waste? What will the grants give a better incentive for prevention? And which revenue sources is the money for all these grants coming from? Is there room in the budget? Great
question. Okay, so I kind of glossed over the grants because it was, I was going fast. But what it is it's there are 4 different grants that are meant to create pilot projects. It's to cover a variety of things, including pilot projects, working with grocery stores to work on making it more systematic about how they do the donations, like those yellow bins that I was talking about for Safeway. So they've been doing a pilot project with Safeway in Seattle, but we need to do more of that across the state with different types of stores and different cities and counties. So it would be doing pilot projects on that. It would be letting nonprofits buy more trucks that are refrigerated, because one of the problems is they don't have enough cold storage, cold transport of the food, so it stays good, so that it can get to the clients, in good, healthy food, as opposed to now it has to be compost. It would be education and sort of outreach money and things like that. So this is really about making it better and easier to do food donation from food processors, grocery stores, hotels, probably hospitals, but anyway, hotels, schools, etc. So that's what those grants are. And it would be probably they would only go on for say 5 years. It wouldn't be forever, because once they're systemized, we wouldn't need that. A big issue is ecology does not know how much food is being donated right now. They have no clue how much food is being donated and how much could be donated. So this would include also scanners. So you could scan and set up little RFT tags on the bins. So you could actually make sure things are being donated and going well. What I hate, this is really shocking to hear and sad to hear. A lot of times a grocery will set up a bunch of boxes of food to be donated and leave it on their loading dock, because the volunteer is supposed to come and pick it up for a food bank, and the volunteer never comes. And that has to go to compost. And this is really demoralizing for the staff at the grocery. And they're like, well, why should we do this if they're not going to come? Because the volunteers don't have enough capacity. If someone gets sick, they may not have anyone to send who knows how to drive the truck. So one of the issues is, can we centralize the pickup? Why is it every group doing that? Why not? How about one central transportation, just like your compost truck and your garbage truck comes around? How about a donation truck coming around? So that's another pilot. So this is all about innovation, trying new things, helping make things systematic. That's what those grants are about that I mentioned. And then there was another part of the question that I haven't answered yet. Did I get? Maybe I answered
backwards to find it.
Or ask the rest if I didn't get to your question.
All right, here we go. Let's see. I'll ask 2 or 3 in a snowball. I understand that recycling companies are opposed to this bill. Can you please explain why? And
why they're opposed? Yes.
Yeah, and then another one is, are there any efforts for public education regarding recycling? I am a master composter in Spokane and get many comments that folks do recycle because they think everything just goes into the landfill or is burned in our waste to energy plant.
Right, great. Well, let me start with that second one. This bill has a lot about education and outreach across the state. First off, the staff at the cities and counties would be paid by the manufacturers to do education across the state. Right now, that's a struggle for some cities and counties. And it would have one sign, one signage type, one list across the state. So it's totally clear about what's being recycled. And it can't be on the list unless it's actually able to be recycled. I should have said that before. So you wouldn't be able to put styrofoam containers on your list because they can't be recycled through our curbside. And people, so in other words, we're going to have one list that's a real list across the state. And that's what they're working on in Oregon right now. So we can learn a lot from Oregon for our list here in Washington if we get this passed. In terms of and so yes, there's a lot about education, including, culturally sensitive. They have to actually consult with communities, vulnerable communities, about how the education is done. There's a whole piece in there about that. So then in terms of the waste industry's opposition, they're vociferous in their opposition, let's just say. And it is about control and power, because what they're afraid of is that the way that the producers are going to tell them what to do. So what we've done is we actually had 15 technical meetings with the waste industry from August until early January. I wasn't at them. It was with Liz Berry and a few technical people. It was very intense to work on the waste industry's concerns and help address a lot of this. So the bill got a lot of changes in it over the fall that the producers are not very happy about, because these are things that tilted it more towards the waste industry's concern about power and control. So we've been doing a lot of work to ensure that this is not something where the producers come in and do everything great for them and then make money or whatever, and not be supportive of our local authority working with their waste industry. So there's a lot. I could give you like a whole ton of technical stuff, but the gist of it is we've worked very hard to address that issue, but they are still opposed, which is not a surprise because that's kind of the way it goes.
A couple more happening here.
Okay, if you want to go with the hand, I see a hand raised.
Oh, do you see a hand raised? Thank you.
Yes,
I can't see that on my screen.
Want to go there
Thank
and then
you.
go back to the chats?
Sure, Alpana. Thanks.
I was going to ask you about the House Bill 1185, mercury light bulb. Can you elaborate this bill a little more? And the main thing that I wanted to know is what are the conditions that we are asking them to implement in the mercury light bulb bill? Is there any condition that we are trying to ask them to pass?
Yes, great question. Okay, so the mercury light bulb bill does two things. It bans general use mercury bulbs starting January 1 in 2029. So you would not be able to buy mercury bulbs at the hardware store that are the general use ones, which are the screw-in ones and the tubes for your home. And actually for businesses as well. And the second thing we're asking is that we extend the current recycling program that went into place in 2015 so that people can recycle their bulbs for free. They were paying a fee and they wouldn't have to pay a fee anymore in terms of buying them. And that be available across the state in a little bit more education and things like that. So improve the program, but then actually to phase the program out, because as the mercury bulbs, the last day they can buy them is December 31st, 2028. They're going to last, 10 years, more or less. The bulbs last about 10 years. And then we want to make sure in that time frame, they are able to be recycled safely. So those are the two asks we have: ban and continue the recycling program.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think we've probably just got enough time for these last two that I'm seeing in the chat. George from Carol's group is asking if the plastic from bottles can be used in 3D printers, providing another revenue stream. And Cheryl is asking, she has a Ridwell account. She's wondering if you can comment on their impact in King County.
Okay, so let's start with 3D printing of plastic. I really don't think it's a good idea to do 3D printing in a school or household setting with plastic. There are significant toxic chemicals that are in these products. They make, for example, they use a catalyst, antimony as a catalyst to make PET bottles, which are the ones that are like the Coke bottles and the water bottles. So what happened, and there are traces of that. So when you are heating it up in a 3D printer, you're basically creating a vapor within the environment that you're using that. And I am very leery of that as a toxics person with my background on toxics. Now, in a controlled setting where they have, OSHA requirements and they have, ventilation and all that, I think it might be okay, but I'd really rather see it be done through the industry in terms of making the little pellets and then making new plastic things. So 3D printing with plastics in schools and in people's garages is sort of a little scary to me. So I would say sort of yes, sort of no, to answer your question. In terms of the Ridwell, Ridwell has been a really terrific market disruptor. What they've done is they've come in and said, we're going to help you recycle for a fee, unfortunately, but for a fee, because it's not great on social equity, but for a fee, we will recycle things that are not being picked up curbside. And what they've done is they've expanded across the country, and they have successfully been able to, not on purpose, but it's happened, that the waste industry has reacted and they're starting to pick up more things. So it's helped actually inspire a change, and like I said, a market disruptor with what they're doing. Most of the things that they're picking up that are for recycling, we're working on bills for to make it even easier for you. For example, batteries. So the battery bill just passed last year, 2023, and it will go into effect in a couple of years, and it will be super easy for you to recycle all your batteries, when you're just going out on your regular errands. That's the goal with that. So I wouldn't say we're putting them out of business, because we're not, but we are definitely working on things that many of the things they collect, including, for example, styrofoam. So hopefully you all know that July 1, styrofoam foodware in Washington State will be banned. So that's going to be a big happiness on that day. So July 1, you should not be able to buy any styrofoam food containers in Washington State, although they are going to get some time to sell through their products. And yes, Ridwell does do a terrific thing with collecting winter coats and collecting glasses and collecting things that are I was talking about recycling before, but they also have this great thing of collecting things that local nonprofits need. And so they're providing a great service for that.
Wonderful and perfect timing. We're at time. But Heather and Anne, thank you so much again for spending your time with us this morning. I've learned a lot and it's been super interesting. I hope you'll come back another time.
I love, Carol has been amazing. Anne has been amazing to work with. I would be thrilled to come back any old time.
Awesome.
Including in the middle of summer.
Awesome. That's great to know. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. This kind of ends sort of our official hour, but Carol Sullivan is going to do a little demo of how to use the legislative hotline. So I'm going to pass the torch to her in just a moment. You're all welcome to stay on, and it will be included in the recording of this event if you don't happen to catch it now. So thank you again, everybody, for zooming in.
Well, Wendy, can I get back with you offline? Do you?
Sure.
Can you put your email in the chat so that we can get?
Absolutely. I'll put it in there right now.
Yeah, after 8, after the legislative session.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Sounds good. You're welcome.
Thanks,
Get rid of my typo.
I'm
You
going to
bet.
grab the spotlight now before doing. I'm going to do a screen share. If I remember how to do this, it says share. And hopefully you are seeing my screen, which has a little bit more on it than I want it to be there. And what I wanted to do at the very end here today is show you how easy it is to make a phone call to the legislative hotline. And hopefully I'll get kind of lucky and we'll actually get a person. We won't be put on hold, but there are several of them from the waste diversion this week. So hang on, you can see the screen. This is the newsletter. You're seeing that, I hope. Yeah, Help is, okay, so here we are in the waste diversion. And I really want to have my legislator know about 2144, which is the bottle deposit bill. Okay, so I've got my phone. You're going to hear me only, not the other person, but this is what it sounds like from your end. Here we go. Call legislative hotline. It's calling. and you're going to hear some dead space here. And it's ringing, and maybe I'll get Melissa back again, because I talked to her this morning and found out there's two. Yes, I'd like to leave a comment for my legislator. My first name is Carol, it's with a C. My last name is Sullivan, Sullivan, and I live at 9924 Main Street, Bothell, Washington, 98011. And that means that my two representatives are Duer and Kloba. And sure, why not send it to Stanford as well? Okay. Is House Bill 2144, which is the one that provides for a deposit return for beverage containers. I remember doing this when I was a kid. This was a 5-cent return. Now it's 10 cents. And all I want to say is I support this, and I hope that you will help get it out for a vote and support it as well. Not right now. Thank you so much. And tell Melissa that the lady who called this morning called back. Thank you. Okay. Bye now. And I'm going to stop my share. And that was it. Did it take a minute or a minute and a half? Not long. So, Anne, question? No, I don't. I just want to make further comment because I figured since I put that page out there, I should try that. And there are a couple of things to add on to this for you to know that this hotline is only active Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. during the session. Okay, so you can't do it in your jammies at midnight like you can with a link, but it's another way of reaching your legislators. The other thing is the person I talked to, and I didn't get her name, said you could just leave all those bills in one message. You don't have to keep calling back. So one call does it all. So you could list all the bills that are there. So those are the two other things that I learned in actually doing this. So I hope you give it a try because it's another way. And I learned that one of the ladies is named Melissa, and that's what their job is. They just do this work. That's their job, is to talk to people on the phone all day and find out which legislators they want to connect with. So probably it's a tally mark someplace, but yep. Legislators are interested in that. They want to know what their constituents are thinking. And if we keep it simple like this, that's great. I also learned that when you look on the website, their information is for the interim part, and they say that they take a lunch hour. But these gals say, no, they're there the whole time from whatever it was, 8 to 4 or something. So you can call anytime during the day, and you may have to wait for a few minutes, but it won't be long. Okay, that's it. I think I'm going to push a button and we will stop recording.
Thanks, Carol.